July 4th, 1953, my dad woke up with a splitting headache. He was a few months shy of turning 17, an athlete, a basketball player, and a runner. He had a summer job at a small-town radio station. His future looked bright. But by nightfall, as fireworks popped and whizzed around him, he was riding in an ambulance, battling nausea, feeling his right arm fall asleep, never to move again. The dreaded polio virus ravaged most of his upper body. But technology allowed him to stay alive. An iron lung became his home for the next year. And knowing his life would never be the same, he decided his only hope was to develop a career where he could use his brain and have an assistant in his work. His father worked with a local automotive engineer to adapt a car so my dad could drive with his knees, resting his partly usable hand on the steering wheel. That car gave him the freedom that he hadn't been allowed while trapped in an iron lung, and it gave him hope. He graduated from high school and then college and Stanford Law School. A friend carried a typewriter to the California bar exam so my dad could type his answers, one finger at a time versus trying to scribble with his barely legible left hand. When we're faced with adversity, we adapt. It often requires a lot of creative thinking, but when you're left with limited options, the only way not to give up is to adapt and learn traits of resilience. I grew up in a household full of adaptations. I didn't realize it for many years because it was just my home. My dad drove with a steering device, so what? He opened cabinets with his legs. I learned to do that too. He got dressed with the assistance of a chair and a tall dresser he could swing his arm up onto. Otherwise, life in my house was pretty normal. But my dad's understanding of technology ran deeper than most. So in 1982, he bought our family a computer and enrolled me in classes to learn to code. I was 9 years old. He told me, "This is the future. You need to learn it." I drank in as much technology as I could growing up. By college, I was working as a network administrator at the University of Michigan. I took a semester off to come out here and work at Lawrence Livermore Lab. I stayed in California to finish my coursework at Cal. Unfortunately, during my first job after graduating, I suffered multiple repetitive strain injuries. Technology innovation had moved quickly with computers, but not quickly enough to adapt to a wide range of bodies. Most computers and desks were configured for the average male. I'm a small-framed female. The repeat trauma on my wrists, elbows, and shoulders left me in so much pain and numbness, I had to leave my job at age 25 with a permanent disability. After working with physical therapists for many months, I began ruthlessly researching ergonomics. I tried every different keyboard, pointing device, and dictation software that I could find. I tested chairs, sit-stand desks. All of these things we take for granted now. Nobody had them back in 1998. They were new technologies then. The workers' compensation system in California was also limited in what it could do for someone with my disabilities, my injuries. My options were to be retrained on the existing work, which was very difficult because coding required odd keyboard combinations a lot of the time, to go back to school for a different kind of work, or to become an entrepreneur. The administrator tried to dissuade me from becoming an entrepreneur. I wrote a business plan and proceeded. At first, I tried freelance writing and some network security consulting because it was flexible and I could do it from home. But I continued to see other friends suffering from carpal tunnel syndrome and repetitive injuries, so I decided to start a company focused on what I called ergonomizing the workplace. Things were going well. I was raising money, I had a test product, I had a few customers, then the dot-com bubble burst. I was back to square one, forced to adapt again. Over time, I figured out how to adapt my entire career. I changed how I worked, learned new skills, my wrists improved, life moved on. I took advantage of the entrepreneurial mindset to adapt for my health and my work as a digital strategist. In 2006, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Unfortunately, I suffered complications, torn muscles and strained nerves. As a result, I was left in crippling pain. Being a new parent is hard enough with sleep deprivation and learning to care for a baby. The pain I was in can only be described as torturous. It felt like my entire pelvis was on fire. I couldn't sit, I could barely stand. I would go into the kitchen to make toast, and I had to lie on the floor because I couldn't even stand for 4 minutes for the toast to be ready. In that first year, I also fractured my tailbone because I had to flop onto the floor on a sleeping bag in order to nurse my baby because I couldn't sit. It was a living hell. I didn't know if I would ever be able to sit in a chair again or travel on an airplane. The only thing that kept me going was my daughter. But 10 years later, here I am. I still live with what I call a self-regulating torture chamber. My pain has been reduced some. It's definitely much better than it was. I've been through extensive physical therapy, various other treatments, some successful, some not. But everything I do requires risk analysis and careful planning for adequate pain management. Through all of this, I've learned to think of resilience as a reservoir. There's a base level where it needs to stay full in order to be functional. You can fill it up with more if you take care of yourself, then you have a reserve. But if you draw out too much, you feel drained and you can't function properly. Last 2 nights, I've been up in the middle of the night because my daughter's sick. So that takes away from my reserve. I knew I'd be sitting here, sitting to drive here, standing to speak, alternating the rest of the day, but I'll take medicine, I'll use ice packs on the ride home, and I'll rest the next couple of days, and then I'll refill my reservoir. But here's the thing, while it sounds awful, I have options thanks to technology. I work from a laptop on a couch with a cell phone, with Wi-Fi. Through perseverance, doors have opened to me that led to amazing opportunities. I can travel now. I've been able to attend events at the White House, to mentor women entrepreneurs in Russia, to train journalists in Latvia. It all comes with a price, but it's one well worth paying. Most importantly, I'm able to do meaningful work in a regulated environment to keep a decent reserve so I can spend precious time with my daughter. The attitude of adaptation I learned from my dad gave me resilience to live a great life. Recently, I realized that I miss being a part of a bigger team. After spending 2 years writing a book, I felt more isolated than when consulting. And although there was much I love about working for myself and I have great clients, I decided to start some conversations about possibly joining a bigger organization. In one of the first interviews I had with a senior tech executive, after sitting in pain without my cushion for 3 hours, hiding my injuries for fear of being misunderstood or being discriminated against, the man asked me, "So, you've been home with the kids?" I was furious. I didn't suffer through 3 hours of interviews in a chair that felt like a fire pit to endure that. But here's the thing. Technology industry has made real progress in recent years adapting to people with disabilities. But many businesses, there are still places we can improve. Adapting to sit-stand desk is one thing. Allowing for reduced hours or remote employees are still difficult concepts for many in the high-tech workplace. Flexible work is not only for a small group of people. It's something people of all abilities need. It's about adapting to bring in the brightest, most diverse pool of talent possible and working with people, instead of fearing whatever perceived limitations we may bring with us. Sure, it may seem weird to have someone standing or reclining during meetings, but it's not much different than using a Skype chat, having closed captioning, using Braille, or wheeling in a wheelchair. The mindset required to adapt tech companies for people with a wider range of abilities is the same mindset required for great technology products. Be open, be flexible, accept failures along the way, be innovative, and embrace change. In her recent commencement speech at Cal, Sheryl Sandberg said, "You are not born with a fixed amount of resilience." I believe this is true for each of us. for every organization and for the industry as a whole. We can fill up our reservoirs of resilience and help each other in the process. After each big earthquake, we have adapted. After the tech bubble burst, we adapted. Surely with the right mindset, we can develop the ability to adapt tech workplaces to lead the world not only in innovation, but also through inclusion. Thank you.